Today on Locked On Red Wings, Tyler Bertuzzi is officially back for the game against Anaheim. We'll preview that game, his impact, as well as the impact or lack thereof that Andrew Copp has had so far.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer for the Daily J, a WWJ News Radio podcast. Well, Scotty is a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, as well as the host of Locked On Tigers. And Scotty, I said it in the cold open, and we touched about it a little bit at the end of yesterday's episode, but today it was confirmed. Tyler Bertuzzi will play tonight against the Anaheim Ducks, and it cannot be stated enough how big that is for the Red Wings top six, as well as the depth going down the lineup. And I mean, just to get right into it, Scotty, how much of an impact will he have, not just in the top six, but addressing the issues that the Red Wings have had so far this season?
Yeah, well, it really, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but it really cannot be overly stressed how impactful he will be to the depth of this team. It cannot be overstated, right? And like I said, we talked about that a little bit yesterday, but this is a team that came into the season and we were talking about how it's one of the deeper Red Wings teams we've seen in recent memory and how awesome that's going to be and all that. And then, you know, the depth was needed because there were a lot of injuries and whatnot. So that has caused this at one point viewed at as a deeper Red Wings team when comparing it to other teams of the past and to a shallower team. And so you're going to start seeing hopefully more and more players slowly roll back into the mix, and Bert being back is so huge too, because that affects like all lines depth wise, right? Like it's one thing if you have somebody come back into the mix and they're, you know, a middle six forward, and you're like, okay, the lines below that are positively affected depth wise because everyone's moving back a roll. But, you know, the top six or whatnot, top three at least, are not as affected. Like this is somebody who's going to immediately get plugged in the top line, and that makes depth top to bottom. Like all the lines are going to be affected by his return, which is, I think, obviously the place to start and probably first and foremost, like the effect that he's going to have. But I also think that with the style of play, we've talked about it a lot, that this team, all of their chances are really on the rush and like the power play. And I think that Bert coming back is going to significantly improve that area because his style of play is just such a like grit and grind, like just grimy. I don't know. He's just such a dog. Like he's really like, that's what it comes down to. Like he's such a dog, and he's such a just not like enforcer is not the style at all, but he is so physical, and the way that he scores is like wreaking havoc in front of the net and like getting in front of the net, just period, and like just making mayhem happen, like in the slot even. Like, so I think that him returning will have a really big positive impact on our ability to score in the opponent's zone on 5-on-5, just because you have Bert back, and that's the way that he scores goals and the way that he creates plays and makes stuff happen.
Yeah, I mean, like, let's not pretend that he's going to come in and make this team a Stanley Cup contender. That he's not,
right.
But he will massively help. I mean, you talked about it. You brought up both really good points that I wanted to touch on. Is one, you know, this isn't getting a fourth liner back. This is getting a top level guy back on your team, and he'll push everyone back down on that left wing to positions where they'll be more comfortable. We talked about it yesterday with Pius Suter. We call it trickle down hockey-nomics, in the fact that Tyler Bertuzzi is going to come in, put Pius Suter back down on that third and fourth line where he's playing against players more his level, and it'll be a more competitive third and fourth line in terms of roster and who's competing for those spots, which is what you want. You want a competitive roster. And you talked about it as well as the fact that the Red Wings at 5-on-5, and we've talked about it on end, struggled to get anything going established wise, like establishing zone presence and pressure for more than just 30 seconds at a time. They're a dump and chase team. They're a score off a rush team, and that's not a sustainable formula for winning hockey games. Yeah, like they'll score goals off the rush and they'll get power play goals, and sometimes the penalty kill and goaltending will stand tall and you'll steal games here and there. But unless you can establish a solid 5-on-5 presence, you're not going to win hockey games at a consistent level. Tyler Bertuzzi helps address that, because when you dump and chase, and I said this on yesterday's episode at the end when we started talking about if he comes back, Tyler Bertuzzi coming back, that puck gets dump and chase. He's going to be the first one in that corner, and he wins puck battles. He's going to get possession. Dump and chase hockey is not ideal. I'm not going to try and say it is. I'd prefer clean zone entries every time. And also Tyler Bertuzzi helps with that as well, as he's very good at it. But you get in that corner, he's going to win that puck battle. He's going to help establish possession, establish sustained pressure. Then he's, as a net front presence, he's a menace. He distracts defenses, puts focus on him. He's in front. He's causing havoc. He's getting the puck. He's getting the rebound. He's deflecting shots. He does a little bit of everything. He's got decent speed. He's a little, not the best skater in the world, but he's got decent speed. He's got decent hands, and he puts pucks in the back of the net just through sheer force of will, because he doesn't give up on plays. And that's something that this team has needed. Last year on this team, this abysmal team in 68 games played, he had a 48.76 Corsi for percentage. Now, granted, you want your players, you want your team to be over 50%, but last year there wasn't a single player on this team that was over 50%. He was less than 2%, less than 1.5% below that 50% marker on this team, with a expected goals for percentage of 49.50. He was one of the most effective players on this team last year. And that's just going to continue into this season as well. You look up at his player card, Scotty. We love to look at these player cards, as I pull it up right now. Last season, you can see it. He was a 90% overall winger. Or that's not even wingers. That's just forwards in general. Among forwards, he was a top 10% overall forward in the hockey league.
Oh, give me obviously the 85 offense is great, and like that's something that, again, like we're talking about why that team desperately needs that. I cannot wait to get even a 50 defensive forward added into the mix, honestly.
Right? Well, and that's just to show like he's a decent defensively as well. He had power play and penalty kill minutes last year under Jeff Blashill's regime. We only got to see 2 games of him under the loans. I'm curious to see how he'll get deployed out there,
honestly,
especially with the power play.
Wants to use him is a fun thing we haven't really seen yet.
Yeah, because that power play of Raymond, Perron, Kubalik, and Larkin has been playing fairly well. I mean, he's definitely a guy who's going to get power play minutes. How will this affect and improve the power play? And of course, you can see that total goals above replacement, he was over 9, close to 10 probably. But expected goals above replacement, he was even better. And expected goals above replacement, obviously the goals above replacement is the outcome. Like that's his actual impact. But expected goals above replacement is how he should have impacted the game based on how he played and how he positively impacted the ice. The actual outcome is just, literal. So he was great in almost every scenario. Only issue was even strength defense, where you can see he was a little bit on the negative side, but made up for it in his power play offense, his shorthanded defense, and his penalties, drawing and taking. He was a positive impact on both of those, not taking a lot of penalties, and he drew a lot of penalties. So getting him back cannot be overstated enough how well he is going to help fix a lot of the issues. I'm not saying he's going to fix every issue, but this team struggling on getting consistent 5-on-5 pressure, he's going to help address that issue. And he could go a long way to making this team more competitive. And I'm really looking forward to how he impacts this game, especially against a team like the Anaheim Ducks, who we'll preview later, is very bad this season. And this is a perfect game to get someone like Tyler Bertuzzi back, and a perfect game to bounce back.
Big time. No, it's I completely agree with the sentiment that it's a great game for him to kind of get back into the mix too and reestablish himself as. But I think, again, like we've talked about the depth, we've talked about like the style. At the end of the day, like the biggest point is just this is a top line talent on this team coming back into the mix. Like that's really cut and dry if you just want to be super simple about it. That's the best part of this is we're getting a top 3 forward back. That's really all that you need to know, and that all that really matters. That's awesome.
Well, and also, it takes a little while for this website to load. So that's why I switched over to the player card, but I switched it over to relative too. I talked about how he was just a hair under 50%. And while for the team that he was on, that was very good. I switched to relative, and he was a positive impact as well in Corsi, shots for, Fenwick, and expected goals for percentage relative to his teammates. He was a positive impact compared to all of his teammates. I mean, it's just, he is such a valuable guy, and I'm so excited to see what he can do. And it's a prove it year for him. It's a contract year for Tyler Bertuzzi. He's looking to get paid. So he's got that high motor already. You add in the fact that he's trying to secure the bag. I think if he comes back and can stay healthy for the rest of the season, I mean, he got 63 points last year, 30 goals, 33 assists, if I'm remembering correctly off the top of my head.
Goal scorer, yes, sir.
You could see even more of that points per game wise. Obviously, he lost a lot of games because of the injury, but points per game wise, you could see a tick up as he tries to secure that contract. And so I'm really excited to see how he positively impacts this team and gets this team back on that positive track.
I think when it first happened, we were kind of worried that it was going to be like a quarter of the season or whatever. Like not too bad, relatively speaking.
Also, he shot like an insane 15 shooting percentage last year. Incredible. Like that's
because he's a rebound and just shove a puck in like God. Yeah, of course it's high.
God forbid somebody be there for the rebound for once. When we come back, we'll move on to talking about Andrew Copp. Go from excited to a little bit dour note. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports, they've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, we talked about Tyler Bertuzzi and how excited we are for him to come back. Let's talk now about Andrew Copp. On a little bit of a downer note, but this is someone I've wanted to talk about for a while. And a guy who follows us on Twitter, Cider House Rules, big cider fan, I would gather, added us and wanted us to talk about Moritz Seider and Andrew Copp. And I made the executive decision to talk about Andrew Copp because this is somebody we haven't really touched on a whole lot. We'll get to Moritz Seider probably on another episode because Moritz Seider always is he's always a good topic to get on. But Andrew Copp, let's call a spade a spade. He got his $5 million contract. I think he got paid somewhere in the $5 million range. Can't remember off the top of my head, but it was in that $5 million range per year. And we were talking about it, Scotty, that this was the move that was setting off the build-up portion of the rebuild. No longer was this team trying to bottom out. They got their bona fide 2C, who's great defensively and can win them face-offs. Well, through 15 games so far this season, that has not been the case. And I guess the question here is, Scotty, are you worried about Andrew Copp?
No. So yeah, here's my thing. I host Locked On Tigers. I am the CEO of, we're gonna sign someone to a decent contract and then they're not even going to come close to living up to it. Okay. Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it a lot. Okay. This calendar year, I've seen it a lot. That even with those experiences under my belt now, that does not cause me to jump ship on a guy this early on into season 1 of a 4-year deal?
5.
Yeah. So definitely no. I'm not worried yet. Would I like more production? Obviously, right? Like that's why we're having this conversation. Obviously, yes. Everyone would like him to produce more. I would like him to produce more. The thing is, we brought him in to be this forward that was going to significantly help on the defensive end that we desperately needed, and also be solid offensively. And he certainly hasn't given the solid production offensively. And while I'm not going to come on here and say that he's been some, like clamps defender either. I don't think that he's like laboring in that regard. You know what I mean? Like, I don't watch him defensively. There's a laundry list of players that I think we should be more worried about in the forward group defensively than Andrew Copp. So I don't think that he's been a liability in that regard, which was a huge reason why I was excited for the signing and why we were so pumped when it happened. But no, I guess in short, it's just like it's too early. And I don't want that to be like a cop-out answer.
Hey,
I cracked myself up, dude. That was hilarious. Okay. It was on accident, I promise. But that was good. I don't want to do like a a cop-out answer like that. But at the same breath, I just it's far too early. Like it's far too early. And I still really like him as a player, and I still believe in the signing. And I guess, if we're at the All-Star break and the production hasn't increased, or if we're at the trade deadline and the production hasn't increased, then I guess that's a different conversation. But before Thanksgiving, I think I'll wait a little bit.
So my thing is, first of all, we don't do sensationalist podcasting here. That's not what you and I do. But it is worth noting his production level thus far this season. And I'm with you that I'm going to give it more time. Obviously, we know the biggest factor of this all is he had core surgery, which we saw it with Dylan Larkin. We see it in other sports. How long did it take Justin Verlander to get back to being Justin Verlander after having core surgery? It takes a long time to recover, and he didn't have a preseason. So he's had 15 games after just coming into the season, basically cold, coming off of surgery, and he hasn't looked himself. So I'm willing to give him more time, and in no means am I jumping ship on Andrew Copp, but he's having his career worst goals against per 60, his career worst expected goals against per 60, and career worst expected goals for per 60 with 216 expected goals for. Actually, that's his second worst. His first worst was his second year in the league. And he's having his worst expected goals per 60 at 3.33. And his face-off percentage is a career worst. And remember, his face-off percentage was one of the key reasons why you signed him. And so far, his face-off percentage is like 40% on the season. And that's just that 42.59, which is almost a solid 10% worse from last year and 15% worse than his best year. And it is a little disheartening to see. And
Absolutely.
When you signed Andrew Copp, it's not so much with him about the production. Obviously, he had a career year last year of 57 points, I believe. Let me double check on that one. So he had a career high last year of 53 points, and I didn't expect him to come into Detroit and replicate that because it's a career high for a reason, unless he's found a new level suddenly at 28. That's not what I expect him to do. I expect him to get back down into a range of like the high 30s, middle 40s, which is a decent production number for a guy who's touted as a defensive forward, especially at center. We signed him to win faceoffs and be a solid defensive forward while also providing decent offensive numbers. Not amazing, but decent. And so far, the Red Wings have not gotten either out of Andrew Copp. Again, I'm not jumping ship because I understand all the factors coming in, especially coming off last year. He had the best season of his career. Didn't really kick in. Like, he was playing well with Winnipeg, but when he got traded to the Rangers is when it kicked into high gear. Yeah. And he wasn't playing center for a lot of that. He was playing on the wing, and he was playing with guys like Artemi Panarin. So a lot of his success last year was feeding off elite level players. So again, I'm not jumping ship on Andrew Copp. I'm willing to give him more time, but to say I'm not a little bit worried about his play level thus far, it's one of those things where it can be both. It's not you're either all aboard or you're shipping him out as soon as the trade deadline hits. I'm a little worried. I'm watching it closely, but also willing to give it more time considering all of the factors.
Yeah, I think there's a line where I'm certainly not excusing. I guess that might be too dramatic of a word, but I'm definitely not overlooking what he has given us so far, which is not what we signed up for. That's all objectively true. It's just that in this small of a sample size, given all the factors he had coming into the season, that has not deterred me from my feelings towards him and like what I think he can produce for this team. So I think it's just a fine line of like, yes, we completely understand that this has not been the production that we were looking for, but in the same breath, I think it's still, and like, I don't have a secret recipe of like, oh, if he just does this, then like, look, the production is going to skyrocket.
There's none.
And I don't think anyone has like a thing you can circle on what he's been doing so far and be like, that's the exact reason why. Like, you know, it's just, it's probably a lot of reasons that we've already discussed, you know, in this segment. And so I think you can understand that he's underperformed and that it's been a little bit of a letdown to get started without thinking that, okay, this is guaranteed like going to be a letdown of a deal and this was a bad signing. It's not going to work out. Like, I think there's, like you said, there's kind of a fine road and a fine line you can walk there.
Yeah, I mean, his expected goals for percentage so far this year, Scotty, is 39.35.
Yeah.
I mean, that's brutal. Quality shot attempts for versus quality shot attempts against, and he is heavily getting out shot attempted when he is on the ice. And if you just look at shots for, like pucks that get to the net, it's 40%. So, I mean, only 40, when he's on the ice, 40% shots for and 60% shots against. That's pretty big number in the red, to say the least. Yeah. And again, I'm not sounding the alarm yet, but it is something to know early on in the season because we're at 15 games played, about 20% of the way through the season. And it's okay. We talk about it with our goaltending and the team in general, but things that early on could have been considered a one-off are now settling in as trends, and it's okay to identify trends. And this is a trend that we've noticed, and I think it's worth bringing up and something to keep a close eye on as the season goes forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree with all of that.
So we'll wrap up this segment, and when we come back, we'll do a game preview of the Anaheim Ducks game, Tyler Bertuzzi's first game back with the Detroit Red Wings since the second game of the season after breaking his hand. We'll break down that game preview, and then we'll end the episode. I don't know why I said and. There's nothing else after that. When we come back, but first, I got to talk to you guys today about SimpliSafe. If you thought about securing your home with home security but have been putting it off, you'll want to listen up right now. Locked On Red Wings listeners can order the #1 rated SimpliSafe home security system for 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and you won't want to miss it. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real, so you can get priority police response. SimpliSafe is whole home security with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and out, smarter ways to detect motion that alert you when a threat is real, and only hazard and even hazard sensors that detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. 24/7 professional monitoring service costs less than $1 a day, less than half the price of ADT's traditional professionally installed system. With the top-rated SimpliSafe app, stay in complete control of the system anytime, anywhere. Arm or disarm, unlock for a guest, access your cameras, or adjust system settings. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system that Locked On Red Wings recommends. Get 50% off any SimpliSafe system at simplisafe.com/LockedOnNHL. This is their biggest discount of the season, so you don't want to wait. That's simplisafe.com/LockedOnNHL. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings, and we're going to talk about the Anaheim Ducks game that is happening tonight. The Red Wings already played the Anaheim Ducks once this season, so this will be the final of the two matchups as they continue their West Coast road trip. The Anaheim Ducks, just like the Red Wings, are losers of three straight, falling to the Panthers, the Wild, and the Blackhawks. And Scotty, I'm going to use a term that I haven't used in a long time, not since last season.
That kind of scares me.
We used it a lot last season.
That's scary.
This is a get-right game for the Detroit Red Wings.
Oh, have we not used it yet?
We have not used get-right game. I don't
really
think.
We've been maybe one of the listeners will point it out. Get-right games.
Well, it's because they haven't had a whole lot of opportunity. They're 7-4-3 or something like that right now. So, I mean,
true.
7-5-3, I think. But, man, first, this is a get-right game. They beat them 5-1, 5-2 last time these two teams have played. So this is an opportunity for the Red Wings to get it right.
It is a get right game. I like it, man. I'm all about it. I'm all about a get right game. And especially because this is a team that you have destroyed already this season. Like, not just beat, you manhandled. Right? So yeah, absolutely. And it's a perfect game for Bert to get back into the mix with. It really is. I think Husso's probably going to be in net. Like,
it has to be.
Right. I think it's absolutely a prime position for a get right game. You will not have a better one. You could not draw a better one up.
Yeah, the Ducks are 4-10-1 to start the season. They're last in the Pacific Division. Troy Terry's been phenomenal for them. Watch out for Troy Terry. He is legit threat, budding star in the NHL. 19 points in 15 games, as is Trevor Zegras with 13 points in 15 games. But I mean, outside of those, maybe Ryan Strome. Look out for John Klingberg from the defensive end. He's a great offensive defenseman, but really lacks defensive capabilities. And their goaltending hasn't been that great as either. John Gibson has been their 1A, so to speak. He's got an .888 save percentage so far. Someone save John Gibson, for the love of God. Please, someone save John Gibson. Anthony Stolarz.
Well, he's got a contract now.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. Stolarz is got a .902 save percentage, not bad, playing 7 games. So, I mean, this is a very winnable game, and I will argue they should win this game. I mean, if they don't win this game, I'll be upset. And if they get blown out in this game, I'm sounding the alarms against the Anaheim Ducks, because this is a team, despite the injuries that remain.
That'll age well and won't get clipped.
Please, for the love of God, don't get clipped. This is a game you not just have to win, but should win. And should win comfortably. And we've mentioned that. We've said it a couple times. We said it about the Montreal Canadiens game, and they lost in a shootout. But you got to beat these teams, and not just beat them, but beat them up. If you want to prove that this team is not, I'm not going to say a playoff team, but taking a step in the right direction. If you're trying to prove that you are a tier above the Anaheim Ducks now and not a basement dweller, you got to beat up on the Anaheim Ducks. I'm not saying that you're going to be a playoff contender by beating up on them, but you got to prove that this is a step forward year and beat them up like you did last time.
You got it. Yeah, you good teams win games they're supposed to win. That's really that simple. Yeah. No, and the Ducks are. Look, I like secret. I kind of like the Ducks.
It's not a secret. You've said it like 6 times.
I know, but like every time people are like, "Oh my goodness!" Like, because the people just like randomly hate the Ducks, because I think, well, they had a little bit of a rivalry when we were both in the West.
Yeah,
like
Perry, Ryan, Getzlaf days.
Right, yeah. And so that's I think is, a little bit of a hangover from that. But now, like with the Zegras Insider thing, the media really just drove that into the ground and really tried to make I think really was desperately trying to get a rivalry started out of that, which were in different conferences. So like I don't know how well that really worked. But yeah, this is a team that has their defensive unit is in shambles. If there was ever a team that you should be able to have maintained zone, like attacking and success against, it is the Anaheim Ducks. This is let's call a spade a spade. This is a putrid defensive product. Yeah. This defenseman room is brutal.
Surely that'll age well as well.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. But they don't have a regulation win yet.
They don't?
Do you realize that? No.
Are you serious? Hold on.
They're like 15 games into the season. They have 4 wins. They're all overtime wins. They don't have a regulation victory on the season.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, my Lord.
Yeah. We're talking about I don't know. No, you should destroy them. This team has been not good. And again, I cannot stress enough, that defensive unit has been really, really bad. They played a game on Saturday against the Blackhawks. They lost 3-2 to Chicago. All 3 goals were scored by Chicago. All 3 goals were scored by defensemen. This is your opportunity. This is a chance to put up 40 shots. Have a little fun out there. Go and have some maintained, consistent attack throughout an entire game, and not just be everything's off the rush or on the power play. This is your opportunity to really take a stand and be effective 5-on-5, because this is not a team that should be able to hang with you defensively at all.
I feel like we really need to be knocking on some wood right now, because this just feels like the formula for a jinx, and the Red Wings are going to hand them the first regulation
all
win.
We've said is that they should do this, not that they will.
And like, I want to tack on something to what I said earlier in the segment, where the Red Wings should dominate them and beat them up. I'm not talking like a 5-1 win like last time. I'm talking about like every other metric as well. I'll take a 3-1 win where time on ice, time of possession, shots for, shots against, shot attempts for, shot attempts against. If you dominate them at 5-on-5 and penalty kills really good, power play maybe nets one, I wouldn't even care if they don't, as long as they dominate. Honestly, as long as they play super well at 5-on-5 and the penalty kill plays well and the goaltending's there, that's a beat 'em up for me. That's a beat 'em up. Like, show that even if it's a 3-1 victory, if you score your goals at 5-on-5 and you just out hustle them and outplay them all game long, that's in my eyes a beat 'em up. I don't need blowouts to prove it's a beat 'em up. Stop them from scoring and score on 5-on-5. That is all I'm asking. That is what I'm asking for in terms of beat them up, is just play a good, complete game.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I mean, and that's like, that's an organization that I think is heading in a good direction, and they have some really exciting young forwards on that team, and they do have the ability to put up goals. Like, it's not the worst offense I've ever seen in my life, but you should comfortably put up 35 plus shots and outscore the heck out of them. Like that should be very obtainable and very doable for a good team that has, borderline playoff aspirations.
One last thing to tack on before we get to our predictions and our over-under estimation. They are 31st in the league in both power play and penalty kill. So,
their power play, I think, I want to say they just scored for their penalty kill. I think it was their penalty kill just stopped. I don't know. No. Here it was. The most recent game, I think, against Chicago was the first time all year they didn't give up a power play goal. I think that's real.
You think that's
just a putrid penalty kill, guaranteed giving up a power play goal every game. Again, this is a team you should manhandle.
Well, and for your own sake too, your power play is 21st in the league at 19%, and your penalty kill 17th in the league at 78.3%. So this is also a game to boost your own metrics. We talked about wanting to be between 10 and 20 as a growth year for the Red Wings. I mean, this is just another. We talk about get right game. It's get right game in so many different aspects for the Red Wings, and you've got to go out and do your job tomorrow. You've gotta.
Take care of business. That's what good teams do.
Also need to know Gustav Lindstrom is game to game, or day to day rather. We haven't mentioned that.
I had the practice lines pulled up. Bertuzzi was practicing with the first line.
Good.
Kubalik and Sundqvist were on the second line with Kopp in practice.
Okay.
Berggren was up to the third line with Veleno and Perron.
Let's go. I love that.
And then the fourth line was Suter, Rasmussen, Ernie, which I kind of mess with too. And then defensive pairings were top four all the same. Wallman and Osterley were pairing 3, and then Hag and Pysyk were the fourth pairing defensively.
Yo, wait. So Wallman was pairing 3 in practice. Are we also going to get a return of Wallman tomorrow too? Because that could.
Yeah.
I mean, the jury's still out on Wallman's impact, but that third pairing needs any help it can get, and any good competition on this roster is good competition.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the biggest thing that jumped out was obviously you knew Kubalik was going to move down, but Sundqvist up to 2 and Perron down to 3 with the 2 kids with Veleno and Berggren is sick.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I don't know how I feel about Sundqvist on 2, but Perron on 3 could be lethal. I mean, that could, especially with how creative Berggren's proved to be, and Joe Veleno's looking like he's taking a step forward. I mean,
those are fun lines.
But this is my point. Going back to the Bertuzzi thing, not to rehash the whole thing, but look at the impact this immediately had.
Yeah, Perron's getting third line practice minutes because Bertuzzi's back, which is not a slight on Perron literally at all. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, so that's awesome. I'm glad to see that. Over under in this game by betonline.net's standards is 6.5.
Yeah, over.
You're taking the over again? I'm taking the
Absolutely.
under again, bro.
All right, have fun with that.
What do you want me to do? The Red Wings can't score more than 3 goals in a game.
They scored 5 against the Ducks last time they played them.
2 weeks ago.
Okay. All we have is what we have, dude. They played them once.
Yeah, and we have
5.
a trend of them not scoring more than 3 goals.
Okay.
I'm just saying. Just saying.
I'm taking the under. I mean, we'll talk tomorrow. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
We gotta go, man. It smells like waffles, and I'm hungry. I think Allison's making waffles or something.
Breakfast for dinner?
I'm not against it.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
Come on over, man. We got food to spare.
I'm down.
We'll be back tomorrow, recapping this game. A late recording, as I said. 10:30 game, 10 o'clock game, something like that. Gross. I don't like West Coast road trips, man. They're rough on my sleep schedule.
They're a lot fewer and further between now. So
yeah, thank God. I'll be back home from my hockey game tomorrow before the game even starts.
I mean, that's a good thing, kind of.
It is, but also you.
It's going to be a late night, but it's a good thing.
Yeah. But we'll be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. See your
team
online every day.
Every day.